statistics. The word official statistics is really important for scholars, as we will note later, and we are lucky to have the professors and the doctors to really listen in, and it has been a challenge to most of the scholars, especially students, when to come to using of official statistics, as I'll comment later. So in UBOS, it is the principal agency responsible for correcting, processing, analyzing, and disseminating official statistics. So what it means is that any statistics produced by UBOS, it goes through validation, and when it is produced, it becomes the official statistics. I'm trying to use the slideshow. I don't know why it is not working. Just hold on a bit.
Hello, have we lost him?
I'm trying to share again.
Okay.
Hold on a bit. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, please. Huh?
Yeah, sorry. So it is the principal agents responsible for correcting, processing, analyzing, and disseminating official statistics. As you may be aware, many people researchers keep on producing different statistics, but they are not taken on by the government of Uganda as official statistics unless it has been approved by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. So also UBOS is responsible for the coordinating and the monitoring the statistical system in the country. It does not mean that UBOS produce only statistics, but also means that different producers of statistics are mandated by the regulations of official statistics to share their findings before they can be certified as official statistics. So this is a quote. It is important. Information is powerful, but only if are able to access, understand, and apply it. So it is important that in UBOS, we don't only produce official statistics, but we also encourage other institutions to use the data to come up with policies and research paper. Because as a bureau, we don't do detailed analysis of this data, but the data is available free to enable researchers to come up with the what do these statistics produced by the bureau mean, especially people who are using UBOS data they should always refer to the findings from the UBOS's reports, which is always available. So yes, you may be writing on something, you may be analyzing data, but when you are coming up with your findings, you need to compare what is in the official books produced by the Bureau and what you are finding. When you find that the divergence, it is always important that you consult the Bureau to ask them, I'm getting this, but in your report there is this, why am I getting a difference? Then you can be helped to see whether there is a problem or not. So if another quote which is important, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. You will see later that there have been a lot of programs by the Bureau, by government of Uganda, and the Uganda Bureau of Statistics collects data on these indicators, and you will find out yourselves whether the government is in line or not in line. So we must follow the standard data value chain, and many people think that UBOS just sit there, think about the questions and the correct data. It is not true. All the Bureau statistics produced by the Bureau is demand driven. It is the stakeholders who write to us, identify their needs, different ministries, agencies write to UBOS that we have been doing this, we want to monitor this program. As we see, there are different surveys, all intended to monitor different government programs. I'll not go through each one of them, but we'll go through the first one and the third last one, identification of the data needs. Normally, UBOS writes to different government agencies what type of information they want to be corrected in their area. NGOs, World Bank, UNICEF, USAID, among others. So from there, we come up with the questionnaire, which questionnaire we discuss with them and find out exactly whether that's what the information they are looking for. But because of our surveys are multi-purpose, we try to cover as many areas as possible to enable both government, academicians, and researchers be able to use them. And we have been trying to promote, in terms of use, promote and encourage data use for decision making. Actually, one of the members you may be hearing is the government has been revising the wealth creation program. And one of the findings which UBOS presented to government before the new parliament came into place was that actually measuring poverty alone is not sufficient to drive us to middle income country. This was a result of engaging the Minister of Finance, engaging Economic Policy Research Center, engaging the National Planning Authority to come up with actually you need to measure the economy differently. And this is where you researchers come in. That we may be interested, like UBOS, we'll be interested to get research papers on the data and be able to inform government using that findings, that this is the finding and this is important for the country to move in that direction. It's mainly, it is only Economic Policy Research Center and the COBAMs, which normally do the research on that data. But also, we really get a lot of requests from one of the persons called Mr. Ngovi Ramadan. He normally requests for data on the different economic indicators, and when he presents, most of the time he presents finance, and he says he's using official statistics, and many times his argument is taken on. So as I said, we have different surveys undertaken by the Bureau. I'm not go through all them, but I will make a sample so that you can know which data is available. One of the biggest or largest survey UBOS is undertaking is the Uganda National Household Survey, which is taken every 3 years. It is multi-purpose in nature, and it has been moving since 1999, 2000, and the last line is missing. The seventh UNHS was done in 2019, 2020. You can say that this is it is a cross-section in nature. It is not a longitudinal survey. It is cross-section in nature, but it is really a large survey, as you are going to see. I'm not going to read, but it is one of the surveys which monitor national and international development framework. I remember in 2016, 2017, when we calculated the poverty numbers, we were able to have countries, World Bank, IMF coming into the country to explain why poverty has gone up. And because our data is open, we shared the data to World Bank, to DFID, to UNICEF, and they are able also to do the analysis and found out that actually poverty had increased. And this led to the changes in government programs. And one of them, the yoga, you heard about the Soga issue, how they are poor and the rest. This was a result of this data. And in 2019, 2020, we were able to do another UNHS, which is going to be released this Wednesday. And this is a unique household survey because one part of the survey was done before COVID and another part of the survey was done during COVID. So given I'm not mandated to tell you what I have found, but I will let you, by Wednesday this week, you will be able to see the impact of COVID on poverty and other indicators, but also researchers can be able now to analyze data. What happened before COVID and what happened during COVID? What are the drivers of the changes in poverty during COVID? This will be a unique one, and it is the only one in the world where there was a national survey before COVID and a national survey during COVID. So this is an opportunity the country has. So normally the household survey is normally a two-stage sampling design. I may not go through the details, but what I want to tell you that I'll request Professor to specifically discuss the sampling designs which UBOS uses. Because one of the argument people put forward is that UBOS statistics is not sufficient. And it is important that any survey for us in the Bureau, we don't look at your outcome. We refuse your findings mainly at most of the studies we have done is methodological, because we know that a poor methodology, even if it is a very good findings, it's really biasing. That's why you have seen in the newspaper that many people say 85% of the Ugandans are unemployed. 90% of the Ugandans are poor. But how many people have you interviewed? What is the distribution of the sample, among other things? So normally, because of resources, Uganda Bureau of Statistics have agreed that the survey we do should be representative at national, regional, and sub-region. In Uganda, we have 4 regions, statistical regions, which are being acknowledged by the Bureau of Statistics. That is Central, Eastern, Northern, and Western. But because of these regions are heterogeneous, we further group them into 15 sub-regions, as you can see on the screen. So normally, as you can see, our samples are normally distributed within those regions, and the findings are normally representative for the 15 sub-region. So that makes it unique that apart from UN, no single researcher can have a big sample which can be both national representative, rural and urban representative, regional representative, and sub-regional representative. So this is when any data produced by UBOS is a way unique, and it cannot, no other subsample, any study can be bigger than the national survey. And remember, I told you that we follow what we call the standard guidelines for undertaking surveys and censuses by UN. So normally the process for UNHS is similar to the process for all our data collection process. As I already said, we start with stakeholders, we do pre-test the instruments, we train through the staff, we do data correct, and normally now data collection goes in hand with the data entry. UBOS has moved away from paper interviews. You currently use computer assisted personal interviews. So that has eased the duration we disseminate our findings. So I'll go through some of the questions, because I know there are people who are doing education, there are people who are doing health, there are people who are doing access to loans, source of income, financial decision making, savings, investment, labor. So one of the components, you look at some individual questions. Most of these questions are coded. They are not open-ended. And in the bureau, we apart from one survey, you will see we minimize questions on perception, because a perception depends on an individual. You cannot much reflect the position of the whole household. So you find in our questionnaires, which I hope I'll share later when Prof allows, is that you can read through and see which type of question you can use. We also capture household level data, which is normally what we call the housing and the household characteristics, the consumption expenditure, the assets, the household enterprise, property and other income, welfare and subjective poverty. I may not define each one of them, but if you want to be able to see them in UBOS reports. We also carry out market survey to understand the changes in price for the consumer, not the CPI, not the consumer price indices produced by monthly, but we collect data on market, like if you are studying about charcoal, for example, changes in price of charcoal, changes in price of firewood, changes in the price of electricity, and all those, we capture that information when you're carrying out the survey, so that the information you get is linked to the household, the household you are interviewing. So all this data is linked at household level. We also collect data at community level. Community level, we talk about health, education, roads, markets, and all other services. So given that this is my topical issues, look at the community issues to do with water, those who are working on climate change, shocks. If you are working on health, we look at quality of hospitals, and among other items. So the questionnaires are big, really, to capture many areas. Like those who are, the current survey we have completed has a lot on agriculture, have a lot of in health, and also those who are working on energy. It has a lot of information on energy. Really, it is really extensive. So you can get a lot of data. When we release it on Wednesday, by the other week the data will be available. So I'm just giving you an example. Oh, I don't know what happened. I don't see behind. But you can say that I'm just giving an example for I'm just giving you an example on some of the findings to UNHS. You can say that poverty in Uganda 1999, 2000 was 33.8. It went to 37.9, and it went back until in 2019-2020, when it reached 21.4%. What does that mean? I think researchers who are dealing with welfare is to see why the poverty increases every 10 years, because it is almost 10 years, 12 years. You can say that the poverty is increasing. And when you go back to 1992, also you can see similar. So it would be like someone can see, why did in these 2 years, because the data is available, what triggered poverty in 2002, 2003? Are they the same reasons in 2019, 2016, 2017? By next week, you'll be able to see the position now. So what will be the reason? So it is one of the area where I think researchers, and since professors and doctors are here, this is some of the areas where you really can encourage students students who are in economics to think about such areas, because government has put in a lot of money, and the poverty at some time is stagnating. Why? Also, you can see that in some areas, which regions are contributing to the increase in poverty. And you can see Busoga is contributing 16% of the total poverty in Uganda is in Busoga. Why? You can say that although central to Uganda North is contributing 9%. Yes, you may find that Uganda North is having 8% of the total poverty, but 8% might be bigger than other regions. That's why you can see Buganda Central, Busoga, West Nile, and then Kalamoja has the highest contribution to poverty in Uganda. So if you are looking at areas, what causes this variation is one of the areas where someone can think about analyzing this data. Just I'm giving you a hint. What are some of the distributive statistics which you find in UBOS report, which researchers can look on and then supplement it with the literature review and then come up with a very good topic which can both help the country contribute to the knowledge of understanding poverty in the country and also be able to be accepted and in a good journal where a professor was talking about. It is really using good data and argument can be really an important thing. Another area which also someone can think about, I was just picking some 2-3 distributive statistics. Look at the health insurance in Uganda. You can see that about 4 in every 10 adult Ugandans would consider joining a health insurance scheme. Only 11% have knowledge about health insurance, but 5% are only covered. So this is something really interesting. Those who are studying health, in issues to do with health, how can the health insurance affect health outcomes of different individuals? And you can be, since the data is the same, you can be able to link it to other variables, employment, source of earning, all those things. You can be able to link and come up with if government and before we ended the financial year, government was coming up with the health policy. I don't know whether people have heard about it. Government wants to start with the old people and other people. So also these are some of the areas where individual can contribute. Saving. I don't know whether there are some people who are studying about financial inclusion and one of the issues you can see that why Ugandans, despite banks opening up, like mobile coming up, agent banking coming up, although they are new, there we still have very low people saving in homes, secret places mainly, and some people are not saving at all. So these are really some of the things which you can really think about in terms of how can you think about this data, which has, and you coil the problem and be able to come up with a very good proposal. At the same time, it helps to support government policies. Also, there are issues on those who are studying in education sector. You can see that the primary net enrollment over the years is declining. And one of the issues which can come up from this study, why government continuously invests money in UPA? How comes that we have not gone to 100%? Now, what is happening now? We are at 90%. And we don't know what is going to happen in the next 2020. So these are you look at these deductive statistics, but you can come up with the question, why is this? Why is this problem? And then you look at the literature review and say, what are the behind the stagnation of the enrollment rate? And what areas have people done which I can contribute to? Look at the secondary enrollment rate. You can see that in 2016, 2017, some areas have even net enrollment for secondary was as low as 10. Look at Karamoja, look at West Nile, look at Acholi, look at Lango. So you can see that actually it is only Uganda where you have the about half of the population who are supposed to be in secondary school are actually in secondary school. And you can be able to think about such areas. How do we promote this one among others? So this is one survey which is cross-section nature, I've said. And now we go to the Uganda National Panel Survey, which is a longitudinal survey. We have been visiting the same household, the same individuals over time. And I'm not to go through the objectives. Those who want the PowerPoints to be there, you can be able to access and know what is it. But what is unique with this panel is one of the few panels, actually it is the first panel in Africa where surveys the same people, an individual, is being monitored every year. So every year we go to the same household, interview the same people. So in your analysis, you can build a panel of individuals and you can have a panel of households. You can have a panel of informal businesses because they are there. You can form panel of children, that these children were supposed to be in P1 by this year, and you follow them. Are they in primary? Have they completed secondary? Now, because it is 10 years now, we expect those who were in senior 6 universities have now graduated and they are working. What are they working? Are they those who completed school compared to those who did not complete school? Are they doing better? So you can really be able to do a lot of analysis using the panel data. And I've been encouraging some of the people of COBAMs to take interest in this data set. I know it's a challenge, as I'll mention later. Panel data is not easy to someone who has not been using large data sets. But as a researcher, we need to shift from using the simple surveys, 300, 400 records, to large surveys. When you present your data, your methodology in the journal, and you say, I use this data, nobody can query, because like UNHS, the panel survey is widely used by scholars in developed countries because we partner with DFID, UNICEF, and World Bank. And this word data can be accessed using the World Bank website. So it is readily available for users. It is You can see the list of the surveys which has happened. We have 8 rounds of surveys, and I've not included the bests because the best was 205-206 UNHS. And this 1920 forms the end line for the panel survey, and we are going to undertake a new panel which will take another 10 years. And this panel is more comprehensive because we are the first country in the world to do what they call an integrated panel survey, where you manage both the household, the enterprise, and the agriculture at the same time. So you can look at the enterprise of the household, you can look at the agriculture enterprise, non-agriculture enterprise, and also the household characteristics and poverty. So the first 5 years is funded by FAO and World Bank, and the second 5 years again be funded by government of Uganda. So it is something unique. Objectives are already known. I may not go through the objectives, but it is important that you go through. It is I've mentioned this. I'm going to briefly talk about the sample because it is important. Previously, the sample survey, when we are starting, where we had a sample of 3,200 households. They are being monitored. But because of those who have used the panel survey, they call what they call balanced panel and unbalanced panel. And the attrition. These are keywords when you are using the panel data. How do you deal with attrition? And how attrition brings then what they call unbalanced panel. Because some households which you monitor every year may refuse or may disappear and you don't track them again. So it brings unbalanced panel. And also because of the attrition, panels somehow become biased. So to reduce the biases of the panels, we call what we call the tracking. We track all household members who are there in the baseline if they are still within the boundaries of Uganda. For example, if someone moved from Kisoro to Kampala and we can get their phone numbers, we track him where he has moved until we interview that person. Also, what we did in the 2013-2014 panel, we did what we call refreshment. We removed a third of the sample and added in a third of the new households. But that one was a challenge because it reduced the number of panel individuals and the panel household over a long period of time. So if you're analyzing the sample now from 2010 to 2020, you can only analyze around 1,800 households, not the 3,200. But when we did the test, we realized that yes, those households still give you a good test for national, rural, urban, and region. So you can analyze the national, rural, urban, and the 4 regions, but you cannot analyze the 15 sub-region. That's why we have increased the sample of the panel from 3,600 to 6,774 households in the coming. So we have almost doubled the panel because it is multi-purpose and has many indicators. So we need to have a bigger sample. So whoever is interested in analyzing the panel, you need to read the basic document. Explains the design, the how to identify the household, how to link the households, and be able to do the analysis. That is what I mean, the different waves. I'm not go. So I wanted you to just to pick from the panel, the beauty of the panel, and why the panel is important to look at the dynamics and what is happening in the country. Or for any indicator I've picked the proportion of farmers that have access to extension services. You can see that the extension services over time has been reducing. That is the message. You can see that both for males and females. But it doesn't seem to be the same with the central. You can see central seems to be stagnating at the same level. But other areas like western, it has moved away from about 18% to 6%. Those who are studying agriculture and the extension services, you can ask yourself, what happened? Why extension service reducing? How has it to do with productivity of agriculture? How has it to do with the poverty of the people? And so many other indicators which you can analyze over time, which you cannot get through cross-sectional studies. Look at the informal sector. I know many people have read many papers on informal sector business, and is it? I don't want to mention name, but is someone who has written about Ochich, someone called Ochich, I think, who has enterprise, who has been saying Ugandan enterprises, they don't reach their first birthday. And I've been telling some professors and they are really convinced that actually majority of the informal sectors in Uganda go beyond 1 year. But only what happens that as I'll just give one example. Someone starts with making bricks. That's what we saw in the panel. After acquiring money, he buys a border. He leaves the brick making, and he starts riding a border. If after getting a border, getting enough money, he might move to a car, or he can move to a business. So now the other business is closed. Is not like because the business closed because people could not manage, but also because business transit to another area. This is something really important, and I know Professor Isari did some work on it, and I don't know whether he published it, but I worked with him to analyze this data to convince him that actually it is not, and is convinced now that actually most of the businesses in Uganda don't close as they normally say. And this is because of this. One of the issue I realized when I was reading his paper is the sample size. Because when you have a very small sample size and you do a focus group discussion, you interview 4, 5 people, you may not get the real picture. But if you monitor like the panel, 10 years, you are monitoring this business, you are able to see that actually this informal business do transit to another business, but not necessarily close. I think this is something which those who are studying enterprises should critically look at it, so that we can, based on scientific research, not only one person, but people can put up argument through studying, and they can really give us good output. Another area which also important is that you can see the cultivated and crop land area for those who are working on agriculture. you can say that actually the government program of having 4 acres, those who are not a politician and we are not supposed to comment on political decisions, but you can see that the average cultivated and crop area for Uganda, the majority is decreasing and is about 1 acre. So if you are planning for the country to have 4 acres, one for food, one for what, where will you get land? And this is where research can come in. What's the best way for those people who engaged in agriculture? Because on average, people have 1 acre. Very few people have more than 1 acre. This can only be seen using a panel survey. Well, this can only be seen using a panel survey. Not any other survey can tell you this. That actually the land size, yes, you may have knowledge, but you not have enough evidence to show that actually the land size for Uganda average is reducing. And if you are planning for these people, how can about 1 acre of land do, of hectare can do on, this is around 2.4 acres, 2.3 acres. So it is far less than the 4 acres the government is planned. So areas of who are studying agriculture, this is also a huge data set where you can do a lot of triangulation on agriculture production, on tools, and this is really a big survey in the panel, and you can write a lot about it. On income quintile, the panel show that about 76% of the population are in the bottom 40% are in the bottom 2 periods. So when you look at, you can see that people might not be poor, but they are in the lowest 2 quintiles, and only 6% have been in the top 60% of the income quintile. This is something really someone can think about in the panel. Why majority of the people are in this, say, almost 8 out of 10 households are in the bottom 40%. Why? Despite government intervention. This is really something which cannot be seen unless you are using a panel survey. And the UBOS does have the data for you to do that type of analysis. You can also look at the working people in terms of education, among others. You can say that over the years, the proportion of people who enter the labor market are with primary, very few with the secondary, and very few with the post-secondary. And you can see the gender, those who are studying gender issues. More women are entering the labor market with no education compared to the girls or females. But we can also see, as the proportion of male is increasing, the proportion of females who are entering the labor market without education is increasing. This is really something which is why this is where those who are studying education can really pick some good questions about the source of earnings. You can say that majority of the Ugandans, despite many people engaging in agriculture, but we see less income is coming from agriculture. Why? That is really something which someone can also study over the years and be able to understand the issue. I'm not going many of them. Like you can say that over the years, like the only 3% of the household had the washing hand facility with the shop, and the target is 50. But you can see where we are. We are moving around 3%, and the target was was 50% in 2025. And the difference is the same regionally. Another area, those who are looking at education, over the years, the performance of pupils in primary school with grade 1 is decreasing, while in grade 3 is decreasing up to 2018. But you can also see that there is generally a drop in passing PLE, because we consider someone who has passed as in grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. So over the years, we can see that the performance of pupils in primary 7 is declining. And that should be something which can make why those who are doing in education, why? Where is the problem? Is it a regional problem? Is it a regional problem? And in addition to literature, you can be able to come up with a good proposal and using national statistics. Also about health, I'm not going because of time. Those who are doing in food security, climate change, you can also look at this data. A lot of panel data can be able to help you to answer this area, and you'll be able to do more analysis. You can see toilet coverage, where we are and where we want to be by 2025. So you can really see that we have a very long way to go. Why? Despite government intervention in all these sectors. So that is the panel survey, and it is so rich that speaking on UNHS and panel survey can be a one presentation to go in details different, but because of time, I not go through them, all of them.
Okay,
We have
Vincent.
the manpower survey, which is
Vincent.
available. Yes?
Vincent, you still have time, eh? You still have time. You can
Yes,
continue.
but there are more slides.
Okay.
Yeah, there's more slides coming. So we have the manpower survey, which was intended to assess the skill levels and skill requirements by the government of Uganda. So this study was done by Bureau of Statistics, but it was in partnership with the 5 East African partner states. So it was done in all the 5 East African partner countries. I don't know. It is I think Burundi and Burundi did, but Tanzania didn't do. But the Kenya did, Rwanda did, Uganda did. So if you want to do a cross-country comparison, you can do about that. So this is one of the surveys which researchers have not utilized a lot, especially national, because it was intended to help government know the skill gaps and the skill requirement by universities. Because in some universities we identified that actually they are undertaking courses which are not accredited to the National Council for Science and Technology. And they are wondering, and they are being taught in these universities. And as you see, they were also intended to look at the capacity of the local training institution to meet the current and the future skill needs, establish the access the human resource database for developing policy planning. This was not done, but I was working with the National Planning Authority to come up with the human resource man database, which is guiding the the National Planning Authority in terms of how different government institutions should be undertaking training to meet the demand. And as I will see, we could establish that some courses are not even demanded at all in the labor market. So that is something we'll be able to see. It was a nationwide survey. It covered employers, employees in both formal and informal business settings, MDAs, and NGOs. So it is the survey which covered all government departments, agencies. So we could go to all, we know the demand, you know the skill they're having, they know the vacancies which are available, they tell us which skills are missing. This data was done but was not much used too. So also the intention was to cover the Ugandans in diaspora, but the findings online were not really good, so we abandoned the process. So these are the modules. They had the employers, the employees, the tertiary training institutions, the informal sector module, the unemployed module, and the diaspora. The unemployment and the informal sector module is really big because it was not only covering employment, but also covering the setup of the enterprise, the duration it has been operating, the source of energy, the challenges they are facing, the innovations, all those were covered under this exercise. So in terms of employees, you can see that majority of the formal enterprises in Uganda are mainly in the education sector, not manufacturing. I think that is the most important thing to note. We also noted that apart from education sector, public administration comes second in terms of employment in the formal sector by then. So, for example, now, if someone is studying issues to do with the impact on COVID on the education sector, clearly you can see the impact will be high in the education sector because it was employing majority of the formal jobs in Uganda. So it does not necessarily mean it is manufacturing. So this is something when we are looking at why education sector employing more people than any other sector. Why manufacturing sector, where government is encouraging people to invest, create employment, what is happening? Why is it not creating more jobs than should be? You can say that it's almost stagnant. It's not increasing the employment. So where would the new jobs come from? I think those who are studying youth employment, these are the areas people should think about in terms of job creation. Where would the job for the youth come from? And this is really, really important to know that the formal sector is still small. It's about 1 million by 2015, 2016. And when we consider the surveys, other surveys, we can see that again the contribution of manufacturing sector over the years is not increasing. And this is something where someone could look at what is the issue. Another area which is also important, which also employs a significant number of people, was accommodation and food service activities. Remember, like some part of the sector, like bars and the rest, have not been open. You can be able to look at these sectors if you are looking at the formal sector. So when you look at the specialization on people who are by employees by field of specialization, we can see that majority of the Ugandans who are employed in the formal sector are diploma and certificate holders, and very few masters, and they are mainly in few areas. Education, the largest employers, has the least proportion of people with masters, and most of the people are diploma and certificate holders. So what would that mean in terms of policy, in terms of who are researching? Do, like, now understand they were supposed to make all teachers becoming, or graduates, I don't know. So what will this one impact on the people who would be having certificates and diplomas if they want to move to degree holders, and the majority are certificate or diploma holders? So even engineering, manufacturing, construction, you can see that majority of them are diploma and certificate holders. So that in terms of simple stats, as a statistician, you can see that less of the, as the people get higher education, their demand decreases, because as many people are getting degrees, masters, well, people shift to, these are something of those who are studying in education sector can really do, analyze this situation. So we have another study which is called Uganda Demographic and Health Survey. This survey is mainly on health, and it is internationally recognized. And those who study health, some of you have interacted with DHS many times. The data is freely available, and the last DHS was done in 2016, and we are supposed to have carried out in 2020, but because of COVID 2020, yes, but we did not cover we undertake the survey. But currently people are training. We hope the survey to start before the end of the year. But this is one of the largest surveys which captures issues on health. Actually, because DHS takes 5 years, minimum 4 years, but the panel is annual. What UBOS did is to get some key modules from DHS, and they put it in the annual survey to see the changes, like the issues on stunting, anemia, vitamin A, issues to do with the sleeping in mosquito net. All these are captured in the panel survey, but also in the DHS. So before the DHS, we compared the DHS findings with the panel findings, and they are consistent. And then that's when the user said, now the panel can also provide good health indicators. This was because we're adding panel surveys between DHSs, so you can be able to do a lot of analysis. So the history is big. It started in 1988, 89, and the sixth one was 2016. Was done 2016, and the ongoing is 2021. So it has a lot of good information for those who want to use DHS, and it is free also available. It follows the same procedure, DHS. The only difference with the DHS, which many people have not noticed, that for DHS we cover more households within enumeration area, 30 households, while in the household surveys we cover 10. And the main difference is that health outcome of the individual in an enumeration area or in a village is heterogeneous, while the income levels people are more of homogeneous. So when you cover more households within an EA, it will not be meaningful to cover households in an EA. In economic surveys, while it makes sense to cover more households for DHS because when I'm sampling, you can run the data, women health outcomes does not depend on the neighborhood health outcome. So that's why in health surveys we cover more households and not normally the same with the income surveys. And we have different sampling methods for calculating the sample for health indicators compared to the income or household survey we undertake. Therefore, as I said in the beginning, I would love one day to have a 1-hour presentation too, where I will take you through, so that when professors are supervising students and doctors, you encourage them to use official statistics because they have robust samples. And many times I found challenge to say when students are using the Uganda BioS, I say, this is not good. Sometimes it hurts me because this is a huge survey generated by government of Uganda, your taxes, and you are the one who discourages people to use this type of statistics. And these resources goes to waste because your data PhD student uses may have very little influence on the policy in the country. DHS is also follows the same procedure, and you can be interested to analyze some sub-region. So we really follow the same procedures for all surveys. That is the uniqueness, that you can pick some information, like the 2016 and the UNHS 2016-17, one was a sub-sample of the other. But it was unfortunate that researchers in Uganda did not use that opportunity of linking the socio-economic characteristics to the health indicators and be able to generate good policy papers. And that's why we have abandoned it not to do it again, because designing that methodology is very difficult compared to one survey at a go. So it has some questionnaires which I'm not go through, but those who are interested in the website, and also those who don't have access, we can organize through the prof, and I can share the questionnaires. They're a bit bulky. These are the different, we take weights and height for measurements for children, women, men, anemia testing for children, women and men, malaria testing, vitamin A testing, and the height and weight for this group is done in the panel. So anemia is also done in the panel, and the vitamin A is also done in the panel. So you can be able to see the trend in these areas. We have also another survey which is done by the Bureau, what is called National Delivery Surveys. And these are intended to assess the performance of government in terms of delivering to the population. And this survey is under the Minister of Public Service, because Minister of Public Service is in charge of ensuring service delivery to the people of Uganda. It is a national survey. Is the public service the main implementing machinery for this to monitor programs. It is intended to give feedback in terms of how does the government fared into the delivering of services. It is one of the real good data set which people can use, those who are interested in delivering service delivery issues, whether agriculture, whether health, whether education, whether employment, whether environment, whether roads, whether. So it is really detailed. And the first one was done in 1995-96, but it was done in only 92. But we have other areas which are also we cover now. We can see that the subsequent DHSs were done in 2004, 2008, and 2015. So as you see on the screen, this service delivery, since it is headed by Minister of Public Service, the Minister of Public Service is the chair in steering this survey. So they invite all government ministries and departments to give us indicators which they are supposed to monitor in their areas, and we collect data on them, and then we present the findings. So this area is really it is real good, and I think this is somewhere where I happened to talk to Professor Antai and some other colleagues. I got some more ideas, and since I'm the one in charge of developing the questionnaires, I'm trying to make sure that we capture as many issues as we can, and it could be a good source. This survey was supposed to have done in 2020, but it is now underway, and we hope to be covered. We'll be able to get data before the end of the year, but to be online we can be thinking about January, February. But also you could use these previous years to come up with a very good proposal, because the data is available. It has a lot on education, health, energy, and the road, among others. So you can really do a lot of analysis using this data. These are the areas already mentioned, they cover, so I'm not going to repeat it. Of the household questionnaire and the service providers questionnaire. So we go to the, like if you are in the district, you go to the district, you go to the sub-county, you go to the health facilities, you go to the education facilities and pick detailed information about them, because we want to link to what the household is expecting and what these service providers are providing. So you can be able to link the two. So this one was relatively bigger, but mainly because the new current service delivery will be much bigger than we mentioned here, because in 2020, apart from Kampala, they have created new 11 cities, and previously we had only one city, which was Kampala. So as a bureau, we said that given that the new cities which are coming to, which already functions, we may need baseline data for them. So we are having, instead of the 15 sub-region, we are adding on another 11. So we have around 21 regions. So we'll be able to monitor after 5 years how is the service delivery in the new cities compared before they became cities. And this data will be important for researchers to use. So this data is available and people can use it. Then we have another survey. Those who are interested in national integrated survey, we have been, these are surveys about corruption in the country and maladministration. It is the last one was just disseminated recently and has a lot of data on corruption and maladministration. So this was the overall objectives: to generate empirical information that can be used to help government, civil society, private sector, development partners to formulate and implement strategies to improve governance and reduce incidences of corruption and maladministration in Uganda. So those people who are interested in research on corruption, maladministration in government institution, this is one of the real data sets which can be of importance to you. I'm not going through the specific objectives, but they are listed below. Since I'm going to give you the PowerPoint presentation, you'll be able to go through and see where you can be helped if need be. I'm just giving you also some highlights. I did not give you for DHS because the data is widely available and the DHS is widely used, so I did not give you the details. But you can see that knowledge of corruption in Uganda is very high. They are really high. Knowledge is really, really high. But if they know corruption do exist, how comes that corruption is increasing? 76% of the people in Uganda said that corruption increased. And those who are studying these areas of corruption, it could be really an area to interlink it with the other service delivery indicators and see what maybe the quality, when you what we do normally now, like in service delivery survey, we include corruption. So those who want to analyze delivery services and corruption, you can be able to link the two and see how corruption is changing over time. But this is why, and the most common are these ones. So why is this increasing? People are most aware of it, but it is increasing. These are some of the issues people can look at in understanding these concepts and use the data. I'm just giving you highlights, not to tell you that actually data exists. So it is important that you are able to use this data. Not only we're talking about academicians, but also I think the professors can partner with students and support and help them analyze this data and publish with them. And to me, that will really be a good that building capacity in the new researchers, so that you can be able to assist these people to achieve their objectives. We also have other areas like population and housing census. Many times people think census data is not shared. UBOS gives 10% of the data for the censuses. So the census has very good variables on education, on health, on housing, on so many other areas. And many people really don't use them. For example, those who are in areas of energy, you can be able to get areas where in 1991 they didn't have electricity. they are using charcoal. In 2014, they are using, how are they faring? Then you link that data with household surveys, because it is possible to link census data with household survey data. And I didn't want, because I don't know areas people are interested in, but they called the method of small area estimation method, whereby you use the census data and the household data to come up with the estimates for lower levels, because the survey data cannot give you like at parish level data, cannot give you information at sub-county level data. But using the survey data methodology and the census data, you can be able to do analysis at lower level. It is called small estimation approach method. So you can be able to see that, for example, in areas where there was, I'm just giving an example, what are the factors which triggers the people having electricity? Or crime rate. You can see that the characteristics of the people, because a census is only data set with its limitation, which gives you the total count in the country. Many times people say me I was not counted. Yes, some of you may not be counted, some of you are not counted. But remember that the government of Uganda uses that figure to plan for the country. So it is important, those who are interested in economics, real economics, to think about. This is one area where people are going. They call it geospatial analysis. It is moving away from the original thinking of learning regression, learning structure equation modeling, and you start thinking about how do you really link the sensor. For example, you are looking at the roads, the population, the roads, the markets, the hospitals, the schools, the electricity poles, because you can use the electricity poles and calculate the distance to the nearest households, and then see what are the likelihood that a household which has 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers will connect to the grid electricity. And they look at, is it the cost which will prevent them, is it what? So all these things can be linked to the census data. And the census data, we don't give the full census, but we give you a 10%, which some computers cannot even run, because we are talking about 36 million records plus. And it had also the community variables, which you can link to. For those who are dealing with the instrumental variables and the rest, you can be able to use them. In Uganda, we also have the livestock censuses, and the last one was 208, and agriculture censuses, which are coming in. So I don't know the slide, I deleted it. But for the census, this is the history. But I'm not sure the 2021 is there, but I'm sure that from 1991, I can guarantee that is there. 2002, 2014, and the next one is coming. But you can be able to access some of this information. For the livestock census in Uganda, we have 208 and 2021. And I think this is something really I encourage members. I know that the exercise is ongoing. If you have a farm, allow people to count the animals, because one of the challenges with livestock census is under declaring of animals. And we know people think that, and when you look at the situation of diseases happening, they use these statistics to project the likely number of animals. So that's why sometimes when they distribute these drugs, they are not enough, because people had already declared the animals. And in statistics, the principle is one. You ask, you validate, and you cannot start say inquire more than what the respondent have told you. You can only do that one in qualitative studies, but the quantitative study is very difficult too, because someone will tell you, I've already told you this. Why? What more do you want me to tell you? And sometimes they might refuse to continue with the interviews. So I remember someone requested for the last livestock data, and I don't know whether I referred him or her to a person, but also the challenge with some of the researches which people do, he wants a particular information which may not be readily available, which requires going through the data, and sometimes it takes very long. Many people think that cleaning, organizing the data is a one day off, but I know there are some people who might have worked with me. When they see that actually someone may take 3-4 months trying to come up with that data to be meaningful. So I think it is also important, as Prof said, as you think about your topic, I think about the data critically, and whether this data you are going to be able to get it. Since Prof is here and other lecturers, I want to think about it as we conclude and mention it briefly. So UBOS also carries out have data on macroeconomic statistics, and one of them is the consumer price indices. Many people call it inflation, but it is looking at the changes in price. I don't know whether it will open, but I don't know. Yeah. So, like, when you look at critically, we normally, when you are correcting this CPI data to calculate the CPI, we don't start with the CPI. We start with the different items. We start with the maize grain, the rice, the millet. So those ones studying, for example, if you are studying maize flour, how has been, for example, what was the impact of closing of the maize in Kenya? You would be looking at, I don't know whether it is there, would be able to see what was the price of maize before changes in price of maize. You can see that somewhere, somehow, the price was up, but started going down. It is only in 2020 it went. So you can see that when there's the shock in maize flour, it may have, if it is a major item by its weight, it will affect the overall consumer price indices. So for those who are studying time series data on different crops, or many on different items consumed by the households, you can see that we have a series of items. I may not go through one of them, but as I was saying, that the cost of collecting this data they go and they buy, like in the market. They don't ask, they buy, they negotiate, and they buy. and then after buying these items, they weigh them and they convert them into different items. So when someone sees a CPI coming out, consumer price indices, the inflation rate is like this, then he thinks that people go and pick some few records and then they present them, when actually it is a hail of data which they collect from markets, from households, from schools, from petrol stations. And if you are looking at changes in prices of, for those, for example, if you are looking at those who are looking at health, uh, energy, and the others, you can see that what is the price of electric cooker over time, charcoal stove, and electric kettle, and the rest, so that you can see, are the price increasing of time? How does price has to do with the people's consumption? So from all those details of items, you are able to come up, below, what we call when you sum the weights, and then you come up with what we call the inflation, the core, the food, and the fuel and utilities. So you can see the changes over time. So, but this one comes from a set of commodities consumed by the household. How do we get this? How do we get these commodities? Well, from as I told you, that UNHS is the basis for so many other surveys. We get all commodities consumed by these households, and then we monitor them under the consumer prices. So that's why the weights which you see here are coming from the household surveys, and they're giving weight based on the share of the consumption of these items. So I wanted briefly to tell you about consumer price indices. So it is a detailed data which you can use. It is the time series data. You can take as a whole, you can tell as an item, you can tell as a sub component. So you can do a lot of analysis with other issues. Then we also have what we call the supplies tables. Those who are doing macro level economics, you can be able to, it tells you the economy, which sectors of the economy. You look at the supply and also the output. So this one balances. And in Ugandan case, we have 162 sectors, subsectors, which you can. So this one is linked. It must balance with the use. So this is the supply on top. This is this. When you look at it, this is the supply. You are looking at different trade margins, transport margin, this one. Then these are balancing adjustments. We also, the production industries, we have the growing of sugarcane, growing of this, and all other sectors, rice, so many sectors of production. You can be able to, this one is public. I'll find out how to share it. I'll ask the director to guide me. For example, if you are looking at electricity, gas, and the rest, this is something you can think about. For those who are using CGE models, you can be able to break these sectors yourself and look at different components of these sectors. And at the end of the day, you will be able to know that, when it comes to production, sugar cane growing, I want to know where does this one go. Let's hold on a minute. So what it means that you are looking at the production, and below we are looking at the uses. For example, when we talk about sugar cane, what happens? You in the sugar cane growing, you have sugar cane. In growing, you have tobacco and the rest. So you have the production, what they call immediate consumption. In this, for those who are using they know how to use the supply use table. You have the intermediate consumption and the final consumption. I'm not go through that, but I wanted to show you that this one is also exist in the bureau. You can get it and be able to do your own analysis. There is also the social accounting matrix. Those who are using some from the bureau is the only in charge of the suit, but the social accounting matrix is managed by the Minister of Finance. And so we look for those who know, you can look at sectors, and then in sectors you look at the multipliers. For example, if you are looking at energy sector, if the government is to invest so much money in the energy sector, how much will it be able to contribute to employment creation? How much will be able to increase in the reduction in the cost of production? So this can also be done from the sum. This one I was given by Minister of Finance, so I'm not sure. I have to ask them whether I can share it with you, but you can do a lot. And this is one area where researchers have not done a lot of research. Most people use it, but they don't develop their sum. Because like if those who are going to use areas like energy, previously the energy was grouped together with the water and other utilities. But now you need to break it down into energy separately and utilities separately. So you may need to reconstruct your sum and come up with a new sum and be able to do its contribution. Mainly with some few minutes. GDP, we have GDP at we have GDP at quarterly and also annually, not monthly. It is annual. We have quarterly GDP and annual GDP. So for those who are studying GDP, you'll be able to see different. The data is different, and I think when you use quarterly GDP, it is not the same as using the annual GDP. So you need to understand the methodology and the documentation about it. So for those who are using time series data on GDP and its component, the data is available. We have a whole department in charge of this macroeconomic statistics, and the people who have come to me and like presentation I'm making today does not mean that I have all this data on my desk. And that's where many people think that I have somewhere that data, when you come to me, I will work on. And those people who have come to me, I've taken them to the directorate responsible for that data, and they can be able to discuss with them what they want and really they are helped. I remember someone came to me and we were able to take him to one of our colleagues who passed away, and he was able to help him generate all the data I want. But many people come, they want data immediately, which is not easy. So this microdata is available. Other indicators like on trade, different types of items being traded over the years are all covered. Because of time, I'm not go through all the surveys which we have. We have what we call the annual agricultural survey, which is looking at on agriculture. We have the Uganda electricity survey, which was done now about 1992, around 3 years now. We are doing the fourth year this year. We have the business inquiry. We have the census of business establishment data, cross-border trade, migration data, tourism. There are many other statistics which are available, but the most important is to think about your research problem. Where possible, I think doctors will guide us here for you who are doing research to make sure that you just imagine this data set available, surveys available in the country, but many professors, many doctors just encourage students to collect data, which data is sample is too small to make meaningful decision for the country. And because of limited research in relation to policy, that's maybe the economy is not growing as it should be. I was one time in World Bank and I attended one of their conferences on budget and economic decision. Then they were inviting professors to give the analysis on what the country can do. Not based on being a professor, but based on what they have already done on the subject. So I think, as you have seen, that this is a lot of money being invested. The only way we can support the country and develop our country is to encourage students to use official statistics as part of their research, but also contribute to the economy development. For example, areas of Myoga, you have seen savings. Why people are still saving the thing, and you have also seen agriculture government has put in a lot of money, but extension service is declining. The students passing in primary 7 are declining. Net enrollment is declining. Many people enter the labor market with no skills. All those issues have a lot which can help. And as I conclude, I want to something to do with how do we encourage students to use this data. I know that I was talking to one of some colleagues who are teaching at MOBS, the principal. He's thinking for that side at Cobhams. He's thinking about and is passing that the funding of the research should be based on official statistics, not on data collection, so that people can use this data to inform policy and also to publish papers. And also to encourage students that the data is not with Vincent as a person. The data belongs to the institution. And therefore, you are mandated, you are required to officially request for the data. so that even if when you use it in your thesis and you ask what is the source of the data, you can confidently say that this is from UBOS, I requested for it, and I officially got the data. Lastly, I'm just asking myself, despite all the government intervention and the rest, are the intervention effective? I've highlighted to you all these statistics, and this is where I think a lot can be achieved as researchers. How can we make this intervention effective? This is the contact of the people at UBOS and the website. And as I conclude, let me see if it can open. So we have a website where you can pick some statistics when you are writing your proposal and the documents even before you get detailed data. There are publications, which is the annual GDP, you can see it. Household survey, you can see it. I've not mentioned the COVID survey, price, they are there, and different statistics on the website which can also help you, which I think is something you can use. We also have, it's a bit old, but not very old, but we have an app which you can put on your phone and be able to get quick statistics. It is called the Uganda Statistics app. It has where you can get, if you are in the meeting, if you are researching on something, you can click in and put in this quickly, this one, and it will give you figures about your interest. So this is something you can also use. And there is also areas of GIS. You can have simple data sets which you can quickly look at, and the special data you can look at there, but you must sign in. I forgot to sign in yesterday to request to allow me access the data. So you need to sign in and request it, because it is supported by Esli. Esli is a company in Kenya, so you can be able to access this statistics. So you can say that even before you go through requiring the data, you can first take time and look through the UBOS website and see what type of statistics are available in which area am I interested in, how can I get this data. And then I believe we can and when we get requests and some of this data is not available, we normally include them in subsequent surveys. For example, one would be important, like issues to do with households, household debt. Like now, financial inclusion is a key sector in government. We are doing more data collected on financial inclusion. We are doing more data on energy. Government is investing a lot of money in the energy sector. We are improving the quality of the data. So a lot has been done of recent in the Bureau to improve the quality of the data and make data available. We have also started engaging different universities. For example, this year I went to Uganda Christian University Mukono, and I presented the different statistics available, and I've been called back to go back and teach them how to use this data. The lecturers themselves, not students, but lecturers themselves, and then so that they can appreciate the data, and they have constituted a research team whom can work on the data to be able to use this data. I've also worked and trained the Economic Policy Research Center on how to use the panel data and household data, and we also support them in improving on methodology. So when you look at the Economic Policy Research Center, most of the reports they use UBOS data. I have also worked with the COBAMs, the principal and the team. I've helped them come up with the data sets which they can use to do analysis without going through merging the data. So as I conclude, I've gone by 4 minutes. Prof took my 10 minutes. So as I conclude, I can say that actually there is a lot which researchers can benefit from the Bureau. The only challenge in the Bureau is that we don't have interns for university, but it can be arranged if your universities official writes to the Bureau that want to have people internship who are willing to analyze the data. And also any email you write at wobos@wobos.org. Our id is chris.mukiza@wobos.org. You write officially to him. All the deputy executive directors, that's co-production, is emailed atai@wobos. Me, I put myself in small letters because I'm not, although I have the data, I'm the head of the method analysis, but you must acquire the data officially by writing to the some universities have entered an MOU with the UBOS so that their students can access the data, which would be good for the country as a whole. Members, we can talk on data and data every day, every time, but thank you for the opportunity and listening. I believe that you'll be able to benefit from this. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Vincent, for the presentation. I believe your presentation has really enlightened me as a person and my colleagues and everybody in attendance. I know there are going to be many questions and there are going to be many comments. But before I give that form, allow me to acknowledge and recognize our senior colleagues who are supporting us, and I think their presence is very critical in ensuring that all the objectives we intend achieved. I want to recognize the presence of Dr. Jolie Biarugaba. I also want to recognize the presence of Dr. Sebastian Bigabenkia. I also want to recognize the presence of Dr. Gideon Kuzinza. I also recognize the presence of Dr. Goreti Chene. I also want to recognize the presence of Dr. Ibrahim Senze. I also recognize the presence of Dr. Hassan Bashir. I also recognize the presence of Professor Janet Bagorogonza. And then, of course, our mentor, Professor Joseph Mtai. Not the least, but also I want to recognize our guests from other countries within Africa. I recognize colleagues from Nigeria, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the presentation has done a lot. First of all, it has been able to help us to appreciate that there are really critical gaps which need more studies. And I think this is a problem which disturbs us as academia, disturbs the faculty, disturbs the students. And sometimes you find a student coming up with an area as a gap, and yet really you find that the information is there. And I think from even the presentation you see, and then sometimes even the areas of when people are addressing the policy implications, sometimes policy managerial implications of the study. Most times you find because the supervisors are very good in theory, they are very good at identifying implication, theoretical implications. But when it comes to managerial implications and policy implications, these studies could really be of help. So, Vincent, we must thank you for this very enlightening presentation. And together with Professor in consultation, we really believe that you should come next Sunday and tie up the loose knots such that we can be able to move forward. Now, I see uh, most of the participants and the students and senior colleagues have comments to make, because I see this presentation really applies to all of us in different ways. But of course, I don't know how you are going to share with us the presentation. I think this presentation really would support us in that process. Now, I think there are some questions on the chat room, but also I've seen Dr. Jolie Bialgaba is raising her hand. Please, Dr. Jolie, can you go ahead and make your contribution, question or comment?
Well, good morning, everyone. My hand wasn't up. It was only clapping for the presenter to say this and thank you. You've given us a lot of information on how researchers could have this background information and make a follow-up analysis on what is already available. Because at times as researchers, you find we are quoting some statistics which is not at a national level, which is quite embarrassing to us as supervisors and researchers. So my hand wasn't up, it was up clapping, not to make a comment. And thank you, Dr. Michael, for moderating this session. I think it has been a great morning to all of us that have listened in. And thank you, Professor Ntai, for this coordination. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jolie. I see in the chat room there are some comments here. I don't know whether we can get all the comments. Or we can answer some of these ones in the chat room. So, Vincent, I don't know whether you can
I can answer some of them as we wait for some other comments, if any.
Okay, okay.
I'll start with the first one, the 2013 data. 13-14 panel, yes, the data is available. And yeah, we'll include it in the PowerPoint presentation, 12-13-14. I'll include it. Then another one, the issues on ethical. Yes, I think we are, when one of the presentation I indicated that poverty went up. And it is an issue that of independence. Many people think that we do present what the government want. No, we present what is correct, and that's why I was asking myself that between some years you say poverty increasing, others decreasing. Otherwise, it would be decreasing, and we are likely to revise the poverty lines in the new report on which is coming up this week, and they might surprise you. So regarding that, we are really independent, and our data is free. Like as I told you, the poverty numbers, we generate our poverty numbers, EPRC do validation independently, World Bank do independently, and then we come and discuss what you are getting. So there is no like a conflict of interest. On the issue of researchers should contact UBOS. Okay, one thing we need to know that any statistics or any research which government is going to use, it must follow the rules of regulations of official statistics. And that's why the research made using official statistics can easily be used by government than independent research. I was just giving you one of the research, because I used to be in charge of labor statistics. Many people say 80% of the Ugandans are unemployed. In Kampala, just for example, but Kampala has 2 million people. And we think that if almost only, if you talk about 85%, you have everybody almost is unemployed. So the concept used should be anchored within the known literature. So we should be really careful to use statistics selectively. That would be really important, to use statistics not to achieve your goal alone, but also to ensure that people, when you produce statistics, is not like WhatsApp message, sensational statistics. Should be statistics which are grounded with facts. I was just letting you also to know that in Uganda, this regulation is now in place, and if you are a researcher, you should it should be it requires you to visit to visit UBOS, and they talk to them. They can guide you how you can make your statistics official. On those who want data on education, yes, I will be able to provide data on higher institutions, and we can discuss. We can discuss, and I've given you my email. You can be able to get this data where possible. I think those are the comments. I don't know that left one.
Okay, thank you. There's another one which has come from Dr. Sebastian and the chat room. Who is allowed to attend the release of surveillance events at UBOS? If you can answer
the last one.
Yeah, he has just as he responding to the previous one, it's just which has come from Dr. Sebastian. Who is allowed to attend the release of survey results?
There is the at UBOS, when you come to, we don't buy some reports. Why do you need to buy hard copy reports when you can get a free? We don't sell reports as data, but because of the cost of printing, sometimes they charge very little amount of money. But surely of recent, if you have a soft copy of the report, which is available online, and if it's not there, at least for the reports, you can email me and I can send you the report. Why do you buy hard copy? Secondly, UBOS does not sell data. The data is free of charge. But also, sometimes you must be human, that you cannot put this data together and you need someone to analyze for you. Surely, will someone spend his work time free of charge to analyze for you data? So that becomes a personal arrangement. But if you want data as data from UBOS for any survey, it is free of charge. On concerning getting the performance of cooperatives, some of this data is available. We can direct you where you can get detailed data. But also, when you look at household level or enterprise level, you can ask whether this farm level is the individual belonging to a cooperative or the farm is under cooperatives. So you can, that's why I said that some of this data, it requires you to have a small concept so that someone knows exactly what you want. Because if someone, I say, I want data on cooperatives. What exactly do you want? What are the variables you are interested in the cooperatives? What are the variables you are interested in higher level of education? So to me, that is where also researchers need to be give more clarity on such issues. That when you are requesting for data, be specific. One person wrote to us and asked, I want panel data from all the panel datas. We asked ourselves, is he going to get it and sell it? Because some people get it and sell it. So when you are requesting for data, you need to be specific. I'm interested in this, and this. Can I get it from the bureau? Yes. Or the bureau can say, no, this data is with Bank of Uganda. Because bureau partner with other institutions. Like now, there is a learning outcome of students or pupils. UBOS work with Tuweza and UEZO because they have experience in undertaking this type of surveys. There are other studies like financial inclusion done with the Bank of Uganda. So it is important that you be clear what you want so that even if the data is not available, UBOS is capable of telling you where this data you can get it because we partner with other government departments.
Thank you so much, Vincent. I see Dr. Goretti, you can go ahead and unmute your mic and make your comment.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Fred, for the good presentation. It was really an eye-opener, like most of the members have indicated. To me also, this has been a very good presentation. I didn't know that such big amounts of data exists, and also the encouragement you are making to us to make use of it. But what kept on my mind is the corroboration of this kind of statistics vis-a-vis the qualitative aspect, because when we are doing research, we find that normally there is some bit of contradiction in using some of these statistics in line with what you find out when you go into deep discussions with the respondents in some of the in some areas. So my puzzle, which you may need to clarify on, is how you corroborate the official statistics, which you are encouraging us to make reference to as unbiased and very robust. I'm just wondering, how do you corroborate? How do you avoid the biasness? How do you corroborate the qualitative aspects? Because we normally find that when you do some detailed qualitative data analysis, you get a more balanced kind of result for your research. Just clarify on that issue of the statistics, the nature of statistics which you refer to vis-a-vis the qualitative aspect of data analysis.
Thank you, Dr. Goretti. Actually, in the Bureau, I happen now to head also both the methodology takes into consideration the qualitative and the quantitative methods. And you can see like in service delivery survey, we include both qualitative and quantitative. But the difference with our qualitative is that when we are doing the qualitative, our respondents from those to these questions come from in some of the sampled areas. The way we choose the sample of qualitative is that we don't just pick. We say, okay, now normally when you look at on qualitative, I know, doctor, you are really prof, you are very good in qualitative, but look at it critically. If you are sampled village A, and we have, for example, service deliveries is having about 1,000 enumeration areas. But in qualitative, you cannot cover 1,000 enumeration areas. You may need around 24. So what we do for us is that you may find that if you have done a qualitative alone in Kampala, you may get a different findings when you have spread the qualitative within the 15 sub-region. So for us, what we recommend is that the way to go is the mixed approach. But the mixed approach should be anchored, the qualitative approach should be anchored within the quantitative approach, whereby you subsample from in the villages where you have done, UBOS has done a quantitative, and then you do the qualitative. I'm sure I happen to involve some staff from certain university, and they realize that the way we do qualitative, we recommend to do qualitative, is completely with many people they do. For us, we go that we know in this village is part of the prior survey. Then we know that this is about youth, this is about electricity usage, this is about cooperatives. So you group the people into those EAs. I'm sure, and what I've seen, there have not been a divergence between qualitative and qualitative if the same approach is used. But if you don't randomly select the respondent, and for example, someone goes to Kampala alone and do qualitative, and this one is a national representative survey, you may get the views of Kampala, but the views of Kampala does not represent the views of Karamoja, does not represent the views of Lango. For example, you can see in the poverty levels, Karamoja is highest, but its contribution is lower. But when you go to Soga, it has a lower poverty, but contributes 16% of the total poverty. So their views may be different from that of where? Of Karamoja. Also, when you look at the activities of Karamoja, for example, if you are studying about informal enterprises, the Karamoja business is completely different from that one of Kampala, from that one of even schools. The behavior of teachers, schools in Kampala is different from the behavior of schools in the rural areas. So I agree with you, yes, but if I'm requesting you one day when you are carrying out a survey where it involves a mixed approach, I can work with you to develop a methodology. Sometimes it is costly, it is a bit expensive, but you will see that the approach UBOS is using to come up with the findings is different from many of the researchers. They just pick people, go and collect data on them, pick some, and that's why I wanted one day to have a methodology session where we go through what UBOS does, and maybe you can compare with what you do and then come up with a better methodology.
Okay, thank you so much. I see hands from our senior colleagues. Let me give Dr. Gideon, then after Dr. Gideon, then Dr. Ibrahim. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you, for this knowledge that you have given us. I must appreciate that we are getting this information, and perhaps that could be explaining the question you asked. We have a lot of data, but we are not using it. One, perhaps people don't know that this information is there or this data is there. But also I want to say that the other reason could be that we need to orient the way we do our research, especially how we come up with such questions. If we particularly focus on how, then ideally you realize that the existing quantitative data may be somehow particularly ignored or taken less of attention because the how question perhaps you may go into qualitative, which perhaps that is the major reason. The other one is the cross-sectional kind of research designs that we usually have, that at times, if we particularly want to fix that, to address a research problem, by looking at the specific point in time, ideally, you may not need to have the panel data and all this. And I think this is something we need to think about. So if we try to change our orientation in terms of research designs, perhaps we shall get use of the data that you have really provided to us. Now, I like I don't know, are you hearing me, please? I hear some noise.
Yes, yes, we are hearing you.
Okay,
We're hearing
thank you.
you.
Okay, thank you very much. I liked the first kind of statement you made from the beginning, that you no longer collect data using paper forms. And that's very interesting. And I think even the current orientation in terms of the pandemic issues, we see that there's increasing resource constraints in data collection, managing it, and even using it. For example, even printing papers, questionnaires, data entry issues, and the data quality control issues, even data cleaning as well. And therefore, this has really created a new way of even how we collect data, that we are moving from the paper form to mobile data collection, especially when we use the computer-assisted packages. And there are a number of them. The Open Data Kit, the Kobo Toolbox, the TeamScope, all these have been able to help us actually overcome some of these constraints. And I think that is to the students who are actually beginning to do some bit of research. I think that's something you need to pick. That's a great thing for some who are beginning. We should disorient ourselves again from the use of questionnaires, well, with clear justifications. The other one, which I may also ask Vincent to elaborate more, when you use the existing data, and the data has been captured maybe for the last years, maybe for the last 5 years, and you are looking at the current issues. For example, I talk about the data which was gathered in 2015, 2013, and you're looking at the current data. Since UBOS collects multi-purpose data, which is actually which is supposed to be used by a number of stakeholders, are you thinking about that big gap in terms of the changes that have occurred? Why then should we be encouraged to use the data when you want to explain the current phenomena, which data has been gathered for the last 5 years or 10 years? I think you may need to say something about that. The other one, which is not a question, I want to say that yes, that exists, but where is the problem? The problem is that as we carry out the scientific research, we somehow fail to create knowledge. And fail to create knowledge, of course, goes in hand of the approaches we use again to turn this data into knowledge. What processes do we go through as researchers? And so, whereas today we have listened to that session of the data, perhaps we should also need to look at the other session of looking at how do we transform this data and what kind of data are we talking about? How do we transform it to the level that we are able to create knowledge? And that means we must have, of course, our research question that we want to address. And I think that's why one of the members came and had very many things, wanted many things without a clear research question. And perhaps you had given research question, then you would be able to know that you want to create knowledge using this data. So perhaps we shall have other sessions where we want to look at how do we transform this data, how do we turn this data into knowledge, because not every data can be relevant for policymakers. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ibrahim.
Thank you, Chair. I want to also thank Vincent for really taking us through this. It has really been very, very informative, and we really do appreciate. Of course, some of the issues I wanted to raise have been raised by Dr. Gideon. However, I just want to make a comment. And I want to inform some of our colleagues, and most especially students, that lately some of the recognized journals or outlets are not publishing articles based on cross-sectional data. And of course, this is due to the associated kind of problems with cross-sectional data, part of which is the common methods bias. Therefore, the way to go is reliance on what we call the panel data, because it is normally used to cure the deficiencies of the cross-sectional kind of data. Now, this alone underscores the importance of paying a lot of attention to actually what Vincent has been presenting. I would request that we take this really to a higher level, and we may need perhaps to have him or other kind of resourceful people or persons to come and take us along with our students through robust techniques in analyzing what we call panel data, because this is the way to go. The second issue or comment I want to make is he has at depth elaborated on the issue of methodology, meaning that methodology can actually, a poor methodology can invalidate a study. Your results notwithstanding how good they are, if the methodology is flawed, then the entire findings will be invalidated. Therefore, as students, I think the key issue to pick here is that as you are designing a study, you need to really pay quite a lot of attention on what we call the methodological kind of issues. Of course, the other one has been raised by Dr. Gideon. I just simply want to emphasize, how do you use the data, let me say, of 2000, 2001, 2012, to really solve or explain or account for a problem which is occurring either in 2021 or 2020. That mismatch, how do we harmonize that particular kind of gap? Thank you. Otherwise, we want to appreciate really your time and the information and knowledge you've given us. We are very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe let me give Vincent the chance to respond those comments, and then I will ask Professor Ntai to to give his remarks, and then maybe we can close the session. I realize that the presentation is very interesting and a lot of issues are coming up, but I believe given the fact that the presenter will be coming again next week, we can be able to continue. So Vincent, please.
There's a hand up of Joy.
There's someone putting up the hand.
Yeah,
Oh, I first answered.
You first answer, then you can have.
Okay, I'll start with the issues on existing data and the current. That's why when I was telling you that we have different time period. Like UNHS, every 3 years is there. Panel survey is every year. And I've not mentioned one survey which started of recent, the phone survey. We have now 7 rounds of data collection, where we call people who were interviewed in the panel survey in 2019, 2020, and then we ask them. That data is, we do a phone survey, which is a new method, as mentioned by Ibrahim, that there are new methods of data collection. We are now using phone survey, and the findings are okay. So for UNHS, you can get data on every 3 years. For the panel, has been every year. For CPI, every month. For GDP, is quarterly. So there is a number of time periods which you can get data. And I think this withstanding, you can be able to make a very good conclusion. For example, if you are using the UNHS, you are using a cross-section survey, you can see that poverty has been going up. Now was going down, but certain years it has stagnated. Why? I think the reasons for changes in poverty cannot be in 1 month, unless it is a shock like COVID, where people can be, and we have done it to collect data before COVID and also collected data during COVID. So you can easily be able to know that what was happening before COVID came and what is happening when COVID came. You can see, because I'm not mandated to share findings now, but I hope by next weekend the results will be out, I can talk them freely. But there is a number of interesting findings which you can really see that they are really important. So I think that is really an issue. And as Dr. Ibrahim said, this methodology is key. And I've been reading some researches, and you really, there is a commonest sampling procedure the university recommends. I remember I was talking to one of the professors in the MOBS, and I know him, and they sent me the students of masters, and they came up with the Morgan. It's called Morgan. I've not used it. There is a certain approach universities are recommending. When you have not used that one, it becomes very difficult to accept your methodology. Then when this person came to me, told me I'm doing something on farm level enterprise analysis, and then, no, this is the methodology. Should you say no? My professor would not accept it. I told him no. Tell him that this is methodology has been used by the bureau and has been widely used by the World Bank and other stakeholders. Go back and check that. You develop a methodology, you get the sample using the method is available. And when we wrote with him, he was a Ghanaian, I think. We wrote a methodology. He was able to go back to the professor, present the methodology, and the professor was convinced. So also students need to convince their professor that it's not only one method of Morgan and something, but there are different studies, different sectors requires different methodology so that you can get very good estimate. So I think the issue of methodology in the research should be really be taken really critically. And lastly, on existing data and the current period, I think I've already mentioned it is the same because we try to collect data as frequent as possible. And also the doctor, the most important is that UBOS data is demand driven. So I'm requesting that professors, if you have something you want to do and you think it can contribute to the country, you just send a data request that can this data be corrected at UBOS, and that will be able to say whether yes or no. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. I invite Professor Joseph Ntai to make his comments and then possibly close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael. I hope you can hear me. I want to take this opportunity to thank Vincent for the great job done, and invite him next week to talk about issues of methodology. We recognize that most of the studies that you have undertaken at the macro level are using certainly the methodologies that you've just hinted on, that you will be able to elaborate. And of course, the other thing, the people who want to complete, your PhDs in 2 years, 1.5 years, or 3 years without really going beyond that, that already exists. And for those who think that you cannot create knowledge using existing data, you're actually mistaken. I've had an opportunity of looking at the data, and there are possibilities of linking data. And I can tell you there's a lot, and you can create knowledge from that data set. So just give it time. Of course, at the beginning, you'll not be able to understand the data until they take you through what they have done. The beauty with this is that the code books do exist, and they have instructions, and their methodologies are documented. So you cannot even start talking about your methodologies when they have already collected the data for you. So you have to forget all about the methodologies and fit into their mind so that you can understand and articulate what they were able to do. So that answers possibly the concern that somebody had about knowledge creation. And the other thing you need to be mindful about is that there have been debates about issues of mediation. We use the cross-sectional data to test for mediation, and researchers, actually scholars, have dismissed that. You cannot tell whether there's mediation, really, if you do not have panel data. If you don't have longitudinal data, you cannot talk about mediation. But we continue to parade such statistics. And of course, you know, whatever you ask the computer to give you, it will certainly give you that information. But you have to really think about the statistic and the interpretation that you are according to that statistic. Of course, the other aspect which is quite important is that now we need to really look at research that contributes towards policy, right? And we are talking about evidence-based policies, for example, in education, for those who want to do your research in that area. I think that would be quite interesting. Evidence-based policies in, for example, social policies, in retirement and so forth, in employment. All that data is available. As Vincent has clearly articulated, they partner with a number of institutions, so they may not be able to give you that data, but they will tell you go to Bank of Uganda if you're dealing with the financial inclusion and so forth. I mean, just go there and pick that information and link it up with another data set available somewhere, and you'll be able to get results. So for me, I'm really very appreciative for the kind of information that Vincent has given us. And I think next time we should give him the opportunity to talk about some aspects of sampling, as was really articulating, not only sampling, but methodology in general. And then thereafter, we can discuss other things that relate to, let's maybe modeling such data. And I think for me, that is really very good. But I want to thank my senior colleagues who have continued to support this platform. I want to thank the students who do a great job. And I want to thank those who have presented and those who will continue to present. We really do appreciate. I want to hand you over to Dr. Michael Koche, and I want to thank you for coordinating and chairing this session. I want to hand the mic back to you so that you close. Over to you, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Professor. We really appreciate you for this opportunity. I think the day is far much spent. I want to invite Dr. Goretti to close with a word of prayer. Thank you very much. Dr. Goretti. Dr. Goretti.